Look, this is a giant con job, and pardon the dad joke, but it is gaslighting the Australian people. This will sink in 48 hours like every other policy they've had. 3 points. There's hardly any gas in this plan. Secondly, importantly, it doesn't mention nuclear. Their gas policy doesn't mention nuclear. How are they going to pay for their $600 billion of risky nuclear reactors? And remember, just 2 weeks ago, Dutton announced the gas reserve in his budget reply speech. Well, there's no gas reserve. 2 weeks later, the gas reserve has gone. The fact is, their risky nuclear reactor policy would push up power bills by up to $1,200, and this is just a giant distraction from the fact that their policies don't add up. The final point I'd make, you might remember about 2.5 years ago, the government recalled the Parliament to pass legislation to cap gas prices and to introduce the gas code. Peter Dutton and the Liberals voted against it. So true to form, they say one thing in the community, they say one thing on TV, but when push comes to shove, they vote another way in Canberra, and the policy just doesn't add up. Right. It's a giant con job.
Are you really in a position to attack the opposition about its plan, though, when yours have failed?
Well, I'm giving you facts, Pete. The facts are, before the last election, as we've established, the previous government, Angus Taylor was the energy minister, literally changed the law. They changed the regulation and lied about the price rises that were coming down the pipeline. That's an established fact. And this election is about a choice about the next 3 years. The policy, so-called policy they've outlined, is a giant con job. It doesn't add up. There's no gas reserve. They don't mention nuclear. They still haven't said how they're going to pay for their $600 billion of risky nuclear reactors to push up your power bills.
Over to you, Keith. Your response.
Maybe Keith could tell us, how are you going to pay for your nuclear reactors?
Well, we want to talk about gaslighting Australians. Only 3 years ago, the Australian public were told 97 times that their power bills would be reduced by $275. Instead, they went up by $1,300. So let's talk about honest campaigning. You can judge Labor on its record, not what the words that they're saying now. Julian wanted to talk all about nuclear. He didn't want to talk about gas because this is
Why did you vote against gas price caps? I mean, answer that. Why did you vote against gas price caps?
Thank you, Julian. So when we look at this policy, the modelling released last night, which is that when you put more gas into the system, you drive prices down. It's not about the Parliament sitting around saying we're going to put caps on the market and that's going to help you. That doesn't work. More supply into the market is how you drive prices down. And Frontier Economics has noted that will see wholesale prices down by 23%. Industrial prices down by 15% and residential prices down by 7%. And the maths shouldn't be surprising. You put more into the system, prices will go down and Australians will pay less. Unlike what's happened in the last 3 years, which has seen an aggregate of 30% on average gas prices increases. And that's not just on residential consumers, that's through the food that we buy, through the manufacturing businesses here in Victoria, which are decimated.
This is fantasy island.
Positive input to the Australian economy.
Well, I mean, this modelling has been done by Frontier. It's the same group that did your modelling, Julian. So are you doubting the figures?
Look at the detail of the plan. There's hardly any new gas. They voted against the gas price caps, which brought wholesale prices down. Like, that's their record. And they don't want to talk about nuclear. You cannot seriously talk about an energy policy and just focus on one part of it. I mean, this is a smokescreen. Remember, challenge me on this if you want, but 2 weeks ago, the opposition leader stood up and he was having a gas reserve plan. Well, he's just released another gas policy that doesn't have the policy he announced 2 weeks ago. It's true to form. They're now spending most of the campaign campaigning against their own policies.
So let's
work from home, cutting the public service, same job, same pay. How long is this one going to last?
Well, let's go just on. Look at, as I mentioned earlier, if this was easy, it would have been done before. How sure are you that this can be achieved, Keith, by year's end, as Susan Lee ultimately said? That's when the savings would kick in.
Well, we're not going to put ourselves in the problem that Labor did. We're going to put numbers to tell people what we think they want to hear. We're going to apply basic principles, first principles, which is more supply drops prices. It just does. It does in every factor of the economy, and it certainly does in energy. So we're going to be honest and upfront with the Australian people, unlike the Labor Party, who were dishonest 97 times.
Just a closing thought on this, because obviously the big producers, they're not happy. Some of our allies, other nations, they're not going to be happy about this as well. They say it's actually going to drive up prices here, and they could even sue for lost profits. I mean, have you got to do more to assuage their concerns?
This isn't easy. Driving prices down is not easy, and we don't need cheap lines like we've seen from Labor. We need actual constructive solutions, and that's with Ted O'Brien and Peter Dutton. They've been constructive in putting more supply into the market, and that is what Australians need, and we need to put Australia first when we do that.
Okay.
How are you going to pay for your nuclear reactors?
We will have to leave it there. Julian and Keith, thanks as always for your time.
Reactors?
We're out of time, but we'll talk to you both soon.